Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursaleen, khatam al-anbiya wa rahmatul lil alameen, Sayyidina wa habibana wa shafi'ana wa maulana Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam and my brothers and sisters in humanity. Welcome to another episode of the lessons from the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Lessons from the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam. How we can take lessons from his life alayhi salam and apply them for your life and my life in today's modern era. In today's episode, we'll be looking at Ibrahim alayhi salam, the trusting. Ibrahim alayhi salam, the trusting. We could also call it Ibrahim alayhi salam, the loving, because this trust is based on love. What do I mean by Ibrahim alayhi salam, the trusting? We know that there are many occasions in Ibrahim alayhi salam's life where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested him to see where his priority was, tested him to see where his love was, tested him to see where his sacrifice was. And all of those tests required Ibrahim alayhi salam to have tawakkul. Ibrahim alayhi salam needed to have tawakkul, trust in Allah, reliance upon Allah, to a level that you and I could not even begin to imagine. We couldn't even begin to imagine some of the trials that Ibrahim alayhi salam was put through happening in our lives. We couldn't even begin to imagine the level of trust, the level of reliance, the level of tawakkul that Ibrahim alayhi salam had to have, was required to have, necessitated to have in order to get through the trials that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put him in. So let's briefly look at those trials, just briefly as an overview, and then see how that applies to me and you in our lives today. We are all very familiar with the stories that we're going to be talking about. The first, quite obviously, that I'm going to mention is when Ibrahim alayhi salam was thrown into the fire. We know that on the back of giving dawah to his community as a minority, trying to stand up for the truth, giving dawah to the community, calling to Allah, what happened? That after they argued with him and after they didn't want to agree that they were going to come towards the worship of Allah, what did they decide to do? To use force, to use punishment to stop Ibrahim alayhi salam. And a fire was built, a mighty fire. It was ordered that wood and sticks and branches and trees were built to make such a mighty, enormous, gigantic fire. So big was this fire that it was reported that if a bird were to fly over it, the heat from that fire would kill the bird. So mighty was this fire that they had to develop a catapult. A catapult. Why? To be able to throw Ibrahim alayhi salam into this fire. Because if they just went near it and pushed him in, even the people pushing him, getting too close to the fire, would be burnt. That's how mighty the fire was. And Ibrahim alayhi salam's hands and feet, they were chained, they were tied. He was put in the catapult and he was about to be thrown into the fire. What did he say? What did he say at that moment? Why is this happening to him? This is happening to him because he was calling to Allah. This is happening to him because he was worshipping Allah. This is happening to him because he was the only person in that era, in that day, in that age, calling to Allah. And that's why he was being thrown into this fire. And what did he say before being thrown into the fire? Hasbi Allahu wa ni'mal wakil. Hasbi Allahu wa ni'mal wakil. Allahu Akbar. What a phrase. Hasbi Allahu wa ni'mal wakil. That he placed all of his trust, his reliance upon Allah. And Allah is the best disposer of his affairs. That's a phrase for you and me, brothers and sisters. Hasbi Allahu wa ni'mal wakil. I place all my trust, my reliance, my tawakkul upon Allah. And Allah is the best disposer of my affairs. Then the catapult threw him into the fire. At that time, Jibreel alayhi salam, it was reported, came to him. Imagine the scene now. Ibrahim alayhi salam is falling into the fire, plummeting into the fire. And Jibreel alayhi salam came to him and said, "Oh Ibrahim, is there anything that you wish for?" How would I react to that moment? Is there anything that you wish for? I'm being thrown into the fire and I see Jibreel alayhi salam, the Archangel Gabriel, coming to me and saying, "Is there anything that you wish for?" Maybe I would say, if it was me or you, I would say, "Just get me out of this fire, get me out of this situation, I need to be out of here." That's all he maybe you and I would think about at that time. Ibrahim alayhi salam, his trust, his love for Allah was so huge, so intense that even though he could have been saved from that fire, even though he could have been taken away, what did he say? He said, I only wish that Allah is pleased with me. I only wish that Allah is pleased with me. In that moment of intense test, of intense, almost you could imagine fear, you and I would have fear being thrown into a fire. Ibrahim alayhi salam's level of trust, Ibrahim alayhi salam's level of love was so high that he says, I only wish that Allah is pleased with me. That's all that concerned him. Is Allah going to be pleased with me? SubhanAllah. The catapult was throwing him into the fire. The fire was there, and fire burns normally. And he just wished that Allah would be pleased with him. But his tawakkul, his trust, it paid off. His tawakkul was such that he knew his Lord, Allah, would not reject him, would not disown him, would not leave him to these people. Because why? He was calling to Allah. So if he's calling to Allah, Allah would support him. So what happens? SubhanAllah. Allah orders, O fire, be coolness and safety for Ibrahim alayhi salam. O fire, be cool and safe. Coolness and safety for Ibrahim alayhi salam. And the miracle happened. The miracle happened that Ibrahim alayhi salam didn't get burnt by the fire. Ibrahim alayhi salam survived. The fire obeyed. It didn't burn him. It burned his chains, and Ibrahim alayhi salam came out of the fire as though he was coming out from a garden, peaceful in his face, illuminated, not a trace of burning, not a trace of smoke, none of these things. The people were shocked and said, amazing. Ibrahim alayhi salam's God has saved him from the fire. Ibrahim alayhi salam's God has saved him from the fire. That's one example. Let me just mention very quickly. Time doesn't allow us to go into too much detail. But we know that another occasion where Ibrahim alayhi salam had to trust in Allah was leaving his beloved wife Hajar. Salamun alayhima. Salamun alayha. Hajar salamun alayha. And his beloved son Ismail alayhi salam in the desert of what would become Makkah. Allah had told him to do that. And he trusted that Allah would take care of them. He trusted that Allah would take care of them. And what happened, we know the story. That Zamzam ultimately came as a result of him leaving them there. And there are huge lessons in trust, not just from Ibrahim alayhi salam, but also from Hajar salam alayhim. Another example is when he had such love and such trust in Allah that when Allah had commanded him to sacrifice his son Ismail alayhi salam, as much as a parent couldn't imagine having to sacrifice their child, Ibrahim alayhi salam was willing to go through it. He went right to the act. I'm not going to say right to the moment of doing it. He did it. He did it. He was willing to go through with the motions of actually killing his son because his love and his trust for Allah was so much. He didn't know what the outcome would be, but he trusted Allah would give a good outcome, whatever that was. And we know the story, how it ended, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was so pleased, he replaced Ismail alayhi salam with a sacrificial ram. What about you and me? None of us have been tested in the way that we have to sacrifice our children, inshallah. None of us have been tested that we're being thrown into the fire. None of us are being tested that we have to abandon our families in the desert. We are all being tested though. We're all being tested. And the question is, do we trust Allah? We had moments in our lives where we had to trust Allah. When we were born, we had to trust Allah, that we knew that we were born into this world, and we trusted that Allah would take care of our needs, and He did, even as newborn babies. We didn't realize it at the time, but when we were born, we suddenly came into this strange world, and what happened? Our nutrition that was coming from the umbilical cord suddenly changed to nutrition from our mother's milk. We trusted, without knowing it, we trusted Allah would take care of us. That is an example for the rest of our lives, my brothers and sisters. Allah says in the Quran, roughly translated, that he who puts his trust in Allah, Allah is sufficient for him. He who puts his trust in Allah, Allah is sufficient for him. Allah was sufficient for Ibrahim alayhi salam on all of those occasions we mentioned. However desperate it looked, however big the test, however enormous what was facing him was, he trusted on Allah and Allah took care of him. And Allah is saying to you and I the same thing. He who puts his trust in Allah, Allah is sufficient for him. So we look at that example and we see that all that Ibrahim alayhi salam did was leave his trust with Allah. Leave his trust with Allah. So you and I hope, inshallah, will take this lesson. That we leave our trust with Allah. Of course, we will make our efforts. We will strive. We will do whatever we can. But we ultimately leave our hearts and our tawakkul and our trust purely with Allah, knowing that He will take care of us. Just as He did when we were newborn babies. He took care of us. So as adults, as human beings, He takes care of us. I pray, inshallah, Allah gives myself and yourself tawfiq to trust Him in a way that He deserves to be trusted, and He will always be sufficient for us if that is the case. I pray that, inshallah, this was beneficial. Jazakum Allahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.